Hello, everyone. One of my followers wrote in regarding hand grips, a way to hold the pencil or pen or drawing tool. And I have a previous one, which was a three-fingered drawing hand grip. But that was a technique that I designed for myself, and, well, only I am me, so if you try it, results may vary. So anyway, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you how to design your own pencil hand grip. And this, I think, is kind of an important thing that I don't tell you, hold it like this. I say design it. Because when you design something, you have to come up with something that fulfills a need, fulfills a purpose. So if you're going to start designing, you need to know what are the necessities of your design. When you're going to design something, what must it do? What must it not do? Because you're the one who has to use it. And, if it's designed poorly and it doesn't fulfill any of your needs, it's not going to work out for you. You're not going to enjoy using it. So I'm going to lead you through the design process of designing a hand grip, and maybe from just seeing how I approach design, you might walk away with your own way of approaching a design. So if we're going to design a hand grip, I tend to like to list 3 to 5 kind of main or important aspects that the hand grip must provide or not provide. So here are my design requirements for a hand grip in no particular order: visibility, comfort, stability, and angle. So in the case of visibility, this means being able to see where the actual working point of the drawing tool is, and also seeing where it's headed. This means that if your hand is obscuring the actual tip of the pen or the tip of the drawing tool, this is a shortcoming of the hand grip. And also if your hand is obscuring the drawing, or more specifically, it's obscuring where that line must go, that is a kind of a minus to the visibility of the hand grip. Comfort, that's comfort and ergonomics. It's just basically how comfortable does it feel to hold the pen. Naturally, if it's not comfortable, it will wear on you for a while, and it's going to get tiring. May even make your hand hurt, and you won't be able to maintain the grip or the technique. So comfort, I think, is a very, very important one, especially if you intend on becoming a serious artist who draws for 8 hours a day. If you're going to be doing it for long periods of time, comfort is really, really, really important. If you're not comfortable, also, you won't be concentrating on drawing. You'll be concentrating on how much your hand hurts. Stability is, how stable the drawing tool is. Even the most comfortable hand grip, and one that provides the most visibility for the pen tip, if it's not stable, meaning that as you draw, if it starts to shift in position in ways that you cannot control it, that's another minus against stability. That's a bad one. It means that your lines will be inconsistent and they will shift in ways that you cannot expect. Maybe I should even say that stability is really could be renamed to control. And lastly, but not least, we have angle. Angle is quite simply the angle of the tool, according to where it is touching the pad of paper or your drawing medium. So if you are using a pen, naturally you'll be using mostly just the tip. If you're using other medium like graphite medium, or you're using felt tip markers, the angle of the tip to as it interfaces the paper is really, really important. If you hold it one way, you'll get a narrow line. You hold it another way, you get a fat line. And of course, with the chisel tip marker, the angle at which you draw is going to greatly affect the stroke that comes out. So I mean, if this stuff all sounds kind of trivial and boring, well, it won't be when you're trying to draw eyelashes. So here's a few different drawing tools. Certainly not an all-inclusive list, but you can see that in the case of, say, this mechanical pencil, that really the only point that you can use is the very tip. And so generally speaking, when you use this, you're going to have a pretty sharp angle of attack on it. In the case of this one, this is a graphite it's a graphite stick. This one, you can use it in a number of ways. You can hold it like a pencil to use the point for a sharp drawing line, and you can also rotate it as you draw. This way, as you draw, you will continually sharpen the tip. You don't have to keep sharpening it as much. You can hold it in a reverse angle like this. This is more for if you're life drawing on newsprint, smooth newsprint. This is so you can get fat lines, really, really broad strokes. And also when you're drawing, you can draw crosswise to the broad nib, or you can kind of draw lengthwise to sort of draw it out, and you can even turn it, using this particular hand grip. This one is another, just another art pencil. This one as well, it's an oil pencil. You can do pretty much the same thing. You can use the tip, or you can use the side. But as you can see, it demands a different kind of way of holding it. Then you've got ballpoints. Ballpoints, again, you use them similarly to the way that you would use a mechanical pencil. And finally, I have my fountain pen. This fountain pen here, it's a retractable fountain pen. This is the Pilot Namiki Vanishing Point. So I can hold it like so. Actually, it really doesn't allow you to hold it any other way because of the pen clip. And the thing about a fountain pen is that it does not like being drawn upside down or in other angles. So what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to picking a grip for a pencil or a pen, like designing a drawing, when you're trying to make your own drawing technique, the thing that kind of the most like overwhelming aspect of this that everything must be subservient to would be the actual tool itself. The tool is meant to be, when you get a tool, you have to kind of figure out how it must be used, or you must learn, how it must be used. You must examine the tool, see how it is used, and then design your grip to fulfill the criteria of the tool. So what I'm hoping you can kind of take away from all this is not, a list of hand grips which you simply imitate and, copy, and just monkey see, monkey do, because when you're actually using the hand grip, like I say, you have to design it. You have to design the hand grip, and you have to work with it. You have to try using it, see what works, what doesn't work, and that's the thing is that every time you switch to different tools, or you switch to different medium, different paper, you work digitally, you work traditionally, you're going to come up with new hand grips, and there's no way that I could show you, all the possible hand grips, and like I say, what works for me may not work for you. People's hands will be different, and can bend in different angles and various levels of flexibility, lengths of fingers. So it's really kind of, I guess, in some ways, a black art. All right. So the first criteria earlier on was visibility, which means being able to see the active, drawing point of the pen as well as what you're drawing on. So I mean, if we have this little thing here, this little marking here, visibility with the tip, right? So if I hold the pen like this, I can see the tip very clearly. I can tell exactly, where that line, or if I'm putting down dots, exactly where they are. This is when you're placing lines, it's a precision exercise, because a lot of times when I use a fountain pen, there is no undo, there is no history, there's no layers, and there's no erasing it either. So you have to see the line before you even draw it. And this is why visibility of the pen tip is so important, because this is where the line is coming out. Got to see where the tip of the thing is. And that means that, if you're holding it, like this, you obviously can't see, where the tip is. This is problematic. So, it just kind of makes sense that, you're going to want to see the tip very clearly. Also, your angle, right? So, I mean, if you can still use it like this, right? You can still see the tip very clearly, albeit the light's not great, right? So that's the other thing, is that lighting is very important, because where you move in relation to the light, right? Like especially here, you can see how the shadows are creeping forward and back. So how your light is situated is where you are situated in relation to the light is going to be really, really important. In my case, I'm using this drafting light, so it's all the way up here. This bar drafting light, which is on an adjustable arm. This drafting light, is really good in that it gives me a very, very long light source, and as a result, there's very few shadows. So here, if I just zoom in on that right now, lock the camera down, you can see that in my case, the camera is actually off angle. My point of view is actually over here. So where I'm situated, like if I turn this way, the shadows around the pen tip, they practically vanish. So, when you're drawing, choose a lighting situation, choose like a light source and a place to sit and, an angle such that, your shadows are falling into your hand, right? So that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say hold it like this, hold it at this angle, but I say set up your light in such a situation that the shadows fall underneath your hand out of sight. Hold the pen in such a way that you can see the tip very clearly. So, that's kind of the visibility aspect. And also, hold the paper at in such an angle that, you can very clearly see, where that pen tip is going. So that's visibility. Okay, so in regards to comfort, maybe I won't show it to you with this particular pen because it's so very rigid and, it's got that pen clip and, also the tip. That's the other thing is like a lot of times the tip is very, kind of demands, that you hold it a particular way. But, even then, I guess, you could, like this is the 3-fingered grip that I use very, very often, which I'm used to. But, I've heard sometimes from other people that, it doesn't work out. And that's another thing is that when you are at the store, if you find that that particular pen doesn't offer you, a comfortable hand grip at all, maybe that tool's just not for you. I mean, it's not the weapon of choice, right? The same thing could be said for handguns. I mean, don't just use a particular handgun because it's a gigantic handgun and it looks nice and it's got an appeal to it. You use a handgun that is easy to fire, one that is if you can't place the bullets, don't even bother, right? So don't just use a really good drawing implement that gives you a nice line because it has a nice line. If you can't get those lines to go where you want them to and you can't control them, it's not the tool for you. Right? It's like choosing a sword, same thing. Find something that suits your hands that you can control well. So if I look at something like like this big fat art pencil, the same thing can be said, right? It's just my hand grip. In the case of my own length of my fingers and all that, this works well for me. But I don't know. It's like maybe something like this will work better for you, or maybe. I don't know, maybe even this might even work. Because look at this. You can still see the tip of the pencil. You're still using like all of, the entire length of your arm to like stabilize it. You can still see that. And for all there are some people who are actually missing fingers, like they've had an accident or they were born without those fingers. And so they have to find different ways to adapt to, using the hand grip. So here's another one, right? Like this might even work, right? It's still visible. It still gives you visibility. You might have to shift where the light is. You might have to shift where you are, but you can definitely see the pencil, and it is very, very, it's a really, rigid grip. So who knows? Maybe this works for you, or maybe this works for you. As long as it gives you good visibility and it's comfortable. Well, actually, if I kind of manhandle this, I kind of crush it up against my finger. It doesn't feel great. So the thing is, find something that is both gives you good visibility and gives you good comfort. All right, so let's talk about stability. And again, when you look at a pencil tip here, let me just bring up this guy here. Right, so this might be a very comfortable position, which gives you a lot of visibility, and it gives you a lot of comfort. It looks fairly comfortable. I guess you could probably use it like this. It doesn't give you a whole lot of stability, and that's because when you're holding at this area, this is a lever, right? And so the fulcrum is all the way back here, and so the mechanical advantage is now at the far end of the tip. And so look at that. There's no stability. It's very wobbly, but it doesn't mean that you can't do this. It just means that you have to be very, very light. The harder you push, the more it's going to really dig into the page, and then there's going to be a lot more friction, and yeah, it will cause you to lose stability. So the thing is that this grip is not an invalid grip. This grip gives you really good visibility, gives you really good comfort, gives you very good control over, over this particular axis of angle. It might be useful for some light shading, and that's not all. It doesn't just give you control over stability of angle, but it gives you control over the pressure. This gives you a very light pressure. So if you needed to do very, very light shading, you might want to do this, surprisingly. Whereas if you hold it further up towards the tip, again, this makes now the mechanical advantage, is all the way up here. The fulcrum is down here, right? So now you can kind of see like this is a very, very rigid grip. This means that the pencil will go exactly where you want it to go, and it won't be, it won't be affected by that kind of thing. Also, when it comes to angle, I should probably, or angle and stability, I should also mention that the grip is not just how you grip the pencil, but it's also kind of goes into how you intend to make your lines, how you intend to move. So you can use your fingers, right, to do the movement like this, and as you can see, the angle is changing. Right, you might not want that angle to change, especially if you want a calligraphic line. If you want, calligraphy, you're trying to get a calligraphic line. You may want to hold it in a particular area, lock all of this down, and then use the rest of the arm to draw. So I mean, here if I zoom out, right now you can see that I can hold it steady like this and move the arm around. I can hold it like so, and then use the arm to shuffle this around. And this is, this kind of movement is very important in that. If you anchor like this little part down and draw like this gives you a very careful measured arc. It's a very consistent arc, but it can't do anything smaller. This gives you even smaller arcs, right? But as you can see, the angle is changing, so it's not quite stable. And then, doing this on the other hand, right? This means that you get very stable, consistent, line control, meaning that the pencil does not change its angle to the drawing paper. And the other thing is that when you use the entire arm, that means that the entire mass of your arm, from your shoulder down to your elbow, down to your wrist, in your hand, this is all one heavy mass, right? It's like a pendulum. So that means that there's a lot more inertia. This is how you get really, really smooth lines. Is you can use your entire arm as a kind of counterbalance, or like a mass to just steady out the line. Whereas if you're using your fingers, sometimes there's finger quivers and that kind of thing. Whereas if you do this and you lock it down, this tends to eliminate a lot of the quivers. And when it comes to just being able to get those lines to go exactly where you want them to, there's a couple of things. Like if you push. Again, talking about stability, when you push really hard on the page, it causes dig in. It causes railing or derailing. So what happens is your pencil will groove into the page. It'll carve a groove in the page, and the page grain is going to start, causing you to go off course. If you're lighter, on the pressure, I find there's a lot more control. So sometimes you want to build up your strokes with multiple, brush strokes. So like if we look at, some of my previous drawings. Right, you can kind of see how many of these lines are built up. Here, let me zoom in on that, rather than pushing it up to the camera because it doesn't handle macro. Right, you can see how many of these lines are in fact built up over multiple strokes, and a lot of times, these brush strokes are kind of done like this, right? And I'm just turning the page, and I only do a small part of them, right? Out here, a lot of times I will purposely break up the line, because it's very hard to get a line to go exactly where you want it to go, in a single brush stroke, or utensil, in a stroke of the pen. And a lot of times you'll see there's these little dots. These my sketches, my early sketches are festooned with little dots. That's because I'm trying to, figure out, where that line's going. So I'll put down a dot. Now I can visualize the line. I'll turn it, like so, and then there. Right, I'm using a movement where you can see as I draw the line, I can either use my wrist, which causes curvature, or I can slide back and forth. So what I'm doing is I'm actually rocking, I'm rocking, like I'm hinging, on my hand like this, which gives me a very, very smooth line. But like I say, don't look at this as something that you just imitate, as a series of step 1, step 2, step 3 stuff, because like I say, it's different for everyone. You have to design the grip for yourself. You have to, right? So anyway, yeah. Okay, so another important one criteria was angle. So the angle of the pen tip in regards to the paper. So once again, if I look this graphite stick, this is kind of a really good example. Or maybe I've already used, I've got a digital felt pen. So this thing has a chisel tip on it. Right, so again, the angle at which it interfaces with the paper, that's a really, really important one. And again, so you may have to develop a grip that lets you hold it at an appropriate angle and lets you kind of feel, whether it's flattened out, right? Whether it flattens out, if it's on the heel or if it's on the tip. The angle is everything. Also, there's also the rotation of it. So, again, find the grip that works for you, that is both comfortable, gives you good visibility, and it lets you control the angle. I should also mention that when this thing normally you use on a Wacom tablet. a Wacom tablet. But when you use it on a sketchbook, it's not going to do anything. But the reason why I'm showing this to you is that, look at this. I can hold it like this. I can turn it around and hold it like this. This gives me an angle that's vertical like that. If I turn it, it becomes like that. So if you're using a Copic marker or something like a permanent marker, which gives you a chisel tip, right? Rotating like this is going to change the angle of the line. This will give you a horizontal line, whereas rotating it this way will give you a vertical line. And also when you're turning, right, it's like you'll see that this gives me angles that go from horizontal to vertical, right? Whereas if I turn like this gives me something from vertical to horizontal. So, you can kind of see the angles at which you control it. Plus, if you're using a sketchbook, you can turn the page, right? Turn the entire sketchbook to get the angles you want. So the idea is that ideally, I've got this big drawing surface, this big drawing board, kind of to illustrate the idea that when you're drawing, there's not just, the grip doesn't end on just, your fingers to the pen. There's also the entire rest of your arm. So that in this case, this is kind of like the sweet spot of where my arm likes to rest and is given the most, the best movement, right? Sometimes you have to roll up your sleeve so your sleeve doesn't contact the page. And now, what I'll do is sometimes I work with small drawings. So actually here, let me just turn the page back. Here we go. So when I work, with a fountain pen, very often, I have many, many, many small drawings. And so, I would hold it like so, and I will shift the sketchbook, I'll draw once I'm done a drawing, right? I move my hand back to the home position, or the most comfortable, I just relax my arm. My arm goes to, this comfortable home position, and then I just shift, to the next area. And every time I just, draw a little box and say, okay, I'm going to confine the drawing to that little box. And again, I just keep shifting the paper around. That way I don't find myself, reaching far off to the side. It's hard to control when you're reaching really, really, really far off. So control not only the pen and, your fingers, also control the sketchbook, shift the position of the sketchbook, or in the case of digital media, you pan the canvas so that you have a sweet spot, and the active area that you're trying to draw over is always within that sweet spot. You'll also see that some of these drawings are right side up. That's because this area here, these are the areas in which the palm of my hand is being supported by the page. Afterwards, I turn the page around, and now I begin drawing, and filling in the rest of the empty spots. So, you can kind of see how the angle of the stylus, or the angle of your utensil, is greatly controlled not only by your grip on the pen or the utensil, but also the angle of the medium. So if you're tilting the board around, you're moving your legs around, you cross your legs underneath it to like raise it up, that is going to change it. You can make that work for or against you. All right. So, again, the main takeaway of this, whole thing is that, you design the grip. You don't just, you don't just, see all the things that I've done and say, oh, wow, look what he did. It looks like it works. I'll do it. It's when you are, developing a grip for the pencil, as you grip the pen, as you move it around, change your angle. These things, it's not like, in some ways, it's almost like, pitching in baseball or throwing darts. It's something that requires, it has to feel right. It has to feel good. You play it by ear, you play it by feel. And then, when you find what works for you, it's still going to feel unfamiliar. And for the most part, it's going to be, you're going to have a lot of difficulty drawing because the hand grip is going to be, first and foremost, it's going to be first and foremost in your head. You're going to be, thinking about that all the time, and you're not going to be thinking about what you're trying to draw. You won't be trying to visualize lines. So what it means is that you may have found a technique that works for you, but it's not yet a habit. You have to move it into habit. It's almost like installing a piece of software, right? So you have to practice, and when I say practice, I mean use it while drawing. Use it in terms of exercises. So, in this case, this is why I had those exercises where you would draw the radial lines like so, right? Because this gets you to practice different movements, all the different angles, and deal with the fact that at some angles there is a loss of visibility, or sometimes if you're drawing, you have to deal with the ergonomics of the situation. So here, right? That's why I did this particular exercise. Why I say that you draw circles, right? Or you try to draw circles both clockwise and counterclockwise. right? And also later on, when you start getting into really, really fine stuff and you're not in the sketching stage, you're in the polish up and rendering stage, that's when you really kind of start to change up your hand grip, and you start to, use, in this case, I'm just rocking back and forth on this to get my movements, right? So I'm using that to constrain. So throughout the process of the drawing, as we move from, doing the sketch and going into the rendering, the movements will be large during the sketch, smaller and smaller as you begin to clean up lines, and when you get into shading. So the movements just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The grip has to change. So you start moving from this is what I use during sketching, and then gradually I begin to anchor my hand down and start to do smaller and smaller movements. But like I say, you're gonna have to find the technique that works for you. You can use what I have, only as a start. But if it doesn't work for you, you have to figure out what's going wrong. How does it feel? Does it feel wrong? Does it is there a change that you can make? So you have to adjust it yourself. You have to tune it to yourself, and then finally you have to practice to the point. You have to practice different exercises to the point where it's moved into habit, and then at that point, then when you're not even thinking about your hand grip, then that's one thing kind of out of, I won't say down and out of the way, but it's something that you can it frees you up to think more about the drawing. And I can't tell you how much you have to practice until you're ready to do it. I just say that when you're no longer thinking about it and your lines are coming out the way that you envisioned them and that you expected, then that's when you're done practicing them. That's when you're good. But yeah, I mean, you have to turn them. You have to make it into habit. You have to move these things into into your habitual memory, and then concentrate on something else. So I hope that pretty much answers most, if not all, of your questions regarding hand grips. And yeah, I guess that's it. You can stop the video. If you're looking for more tutorials, I have a Tumblr account. It's le-m.ec.tumblr.com, umblr.com. So yeah, I have a Tumblr account, and this Tumblr account is where I only post artwork and my own tutorials. I don't do a whole lot of reblogging except for maybe to promote a few of my friends' artwork. And so yeah, you can follow me there, and I will see you all later.